I'd be fucking terrified. So, you did a good job.
Can you do a mountain lion, Gandalf?
I would think that there was a camper nearby.
I can do a mountain
I
lion.
can do.
Can
I
you
can
do
do
a mountain lion?
I can do a mountain lion.
Welcome,
Yeah,
Jen.
we need to get back on topic.
You do a mountain lion, Josh. That was pretty good. That was pretty good, man.
I am a mountain lion.
Yeah,
Though, so.
Does that mean you're reincarnating?
That was awesome.
There was a camper.
like
Hey,
that.
I can do I can do a pretty amazing pond frog.
Right now.
We need
You do a mountain lion, Josh. That was pretty good.
That was good.
I am a mountain lion.
That might be better than my mountain lion.
Whoa, we have.
I can do a pretty amazing pond frog.
Is this
I think it was
playing
really
back
good
on
cow.
itself?
Moo.
go for it, Rufus.
Are you doing a frog, Rufus?
Absolutely, it's a frog. Got to be a frog.
That's a pond frog.
Hey, that's the sound I make when I.
What has this devolved into? What have you fuckers done? You're all shills.
Listen, we are going through our reincarnated spirit.
That's my.
Is there a cat purring?
You can't deprive us of our reincarnated
Who's
spirit.
purring right now? I hear somebody purring.
Hey, somebody's doing a tree frog. What is that?
I've got some jokes and I can't do them.
Hey guys, sorry I dropped out before my internet went down and just came back.
Hey, no worries,
Jen.
Jen.
We thought you didn't like us.
Yeah, we
Hey,
caught that.
Influence. Nice to see you. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Jen, I just want to say thank you for the compliment and what you said about me. That was fucking amazing, and I love you.
Hey,
Hey, Jen,
well,
do
wait a
you
minute.
Do you have any animals you can
Damn
make
it,
sounds
Influence!
like that you've been
You cut me
reincarnated
off.
through?
That's exactly what I
I
was
can do a
going to
mountain
say.
lion.
We were doing stupid animal sounds just before you showed
Yes,
up.
so please do an animal impression for us all.
I don't know if I can do any. Maybe. Oh no, I don't even want to try. I don't think I've ever tried.
You gotta have one. What's your spirit animal, Jen? She's trying privately, trying quietly.
What's your totem?
I guess my spirit animal is probably the wolf.
Let's hear your howl. Let's hear your howl.
Ow!
Oh, there you go.
But that whoever was doing that lion before, that was pretty impressive.
The mountain
Yeah, that
lion.
was Josh.
Mine
Mine is just really doing a Donald Duck with a mountain lion, like a that.
Oh yeah. That's a mountain lion though. I've heard that too. I've heard it.
Do you guys ever hear this when you go outside?
Yeah, actually, I have heard that.
Yeah.
There
Sounds
you
like a
go.
mockingbird.
When you first whistled, I thought you were going to do an impression of a dropping bomb. I thought you were like, have you ever heard the sound? Yeah, exactly.
Right?
You know,
Hey,
it is
Gandalf,
pretty
Gandalf.
amazing though when
do
you
the
think
do the
about,
Shadowfax call. Call Shadowfax.
Oh,
it's pretty amazing when you think about how many of the ancestors though did really know how to mimic the animals to benefit them
Oh yeah.
and help them.
You know, I've heard some scary stuff in the woods, though. You know, some stuff that I couldn't really mimic, you guys.
Like those crickets? Who's
Gandalf,
doing that?
Gandalf, are you
Who's
scared
doing
of
the crickets? Who's doing the
forest?
crickets?
Are you afraid of the forest?
Gandalf's just done the perfect cricket.
Are you afraid of the forest, or are you afraid of Sasquatch?
I think
I'm afraid of both.
I think those were real crickets.
Why?
Hey, listen, you guys. This is all fun and stuff, but Jen is back, and we were talking about past lives. and now we have Jen, so maybe we should get back on topic.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
I
let's
agree.
do that.
Indubitably.
Rufus Cat, you're on top of it. Way to be the sober one, the DD.
The DD. He's the DD of this
The
conversation.
DD of
Thank
this
you.
live chat.
Yeah,
The
thank you.
designated streamer.
Yeah, designated streamer. This is a community effort.
I've
so
done this
yes.
before.
No, you know what? I just want to say, like, I'm stoked that like all of us who have made it here, like, man, we can have a good time. We can talk shit. We can do animal calls together, and it's awesome. It's like, man, I look forward to this every week. Thank you.
Hey, hey, brother.
We love you, Josh.
Bro, we love you, man, and I'm gonna hold you to a Bigfoot show one of these days, man.
Hey, I'm down for it. No,
Don't do it. Don't
and
do it,
Influence,
Josh.
before we go any further, I have to ask, Influence, are you still down for the 13th episode doing your breakdown?
I will try to let you know for sure. It depends on what happens tomorrow.
Okay, fair enough. And I won't hold you to it. I know you have your own thing, but 13th episode for the 13th hour next Friday. So I'm giving it to you, Influence. If you can't do it, it's no problem. We'll make do.
Are you gonna give us a full rundown, Influence?
I probably could, but yeah.
You should probably spend most of your time talking about Ophiuchus.
Don't give any spoilers, God.
Did I just ruin it for everybody?
No, you didn't. No, you didn't, thankfully. She's got plenty to talk about, and you know, I'd love to have you on for episode 13. You know, like you've been a fucking awesome person to me and a good friend over the years. You deserve our 13th episode, 13th hour.
Right? Okay, cool. That's cool.
But if you can't, we'll just rename it and say
right.
It's the 13th. we'll the episode you do will actually be the 13th long run. But no, so onward ho then to this. And I'm sorry, Jen, if it got off topic earlier and if you got irritated with us or anything. It kind of does that, as you've seen. It goes that way on every stream.
No, I'm not irritated at all. My internet just went down, and I didn't have any other way to let you know. But I just figured I would hop back on if you were still live.
Yeah.
Well, just quickly, Josh. What does the 13 mean?
The 13th hour is from George Orwell's opening line, and the clock strike 13. It's kind of like to me. I mean, that's what we're living in, and we're just reminiscing on the 13th hour and talking about it. There you go. And next year though, 2020, Orwell's 1984 becomes public domain. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of that's where I started, was with the government conspiracy kind of thing, and ended up on a more spiritual path. So it all connects, though.
Yeah, it does connect, and people sometimes fail to see the connection. Is that, like, they have to ask themselves, what exactly is it that they don't want us to know about? And it's exactly this kind of stuff, is this mind control type stuff, like meditation and various other psychic phenomena. They don't seem to like people knowing about that stuff.
Indeed, they obfuscate it. They make it seem as though it's kind of gotten with this New Age movement. It's been the really biggest perpetrator of all of this disinformation is the New Age movement. It talks about, fucking yoga and meditation and all this shit and Kundalini, and yet it misrepresents it and puts it in a light where it doesn't actually do anything for the person but boost their ego.
It's erroneously misrepresented.
Yes, exactly. Perfect.
It's erroneously misrepresented. They deliberately take things out and put just portions of it, and the masses are swallowing it up.
Yes, you nailed it.
Has anyone ever seen the the conversation between Richard Dawkins and Deepak Chopra talking about quantum healing?
I have not.
It's a pretty short video, and it's maybe like 5 or 6 minutes long, and it's just them. Maybe it's a bit longer, but it's just them talking, and Deepak is trying to talk about, you know, quantum healing, and Richard Dawkins is basically very, very suspicious, and it's not, it doesn't, like, I don't really think Chopra does a good job defending his position, so he's just saying, oh, well, it's a metaphor, and it's, you know, it just made him look kind of stupid.
Jen, are you like, I'm not sure how to say this, pardon me if it comes out offensive, but are you like a fan of Chopra?
Not really, because I don't really think he represents the tradition very well. He's kind of like a Mick Yogi.
Okay.
People like him make the rest of us look bad, basically. He's not a very good representative.
And to add to that, I think anyone that would call themselves, I would say that anyone that calls themselves a yogi would be, as Artemis says, a shill. You'll never meet a real yogi unless you're on the path.
Shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because it appears that Deepak Chopra doesn't have the respect of anyone that I would consider respectable. So out of everyone that I consider respectable, they all look at him as a kook. So maybe he does a terrible job representing. Maybe he's just a horrible communicator.
But to add, to say that there's no truth in what he says is limiting.
Let's not talk about what Chopra says. Let's talk about what Jen says.
Oh.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, it's true. You probably won't meet a whole lot of yogis out there, because most of them just wouldn't want to go on the internet and deal with, as we all know, there's a lot of very disturbed individuals out there, and I think it can be a pretty disheartening. It takes a certain kind of person to.
They also got like a business to maintain.
Now, here's the other aspect to that, and the reason I don't think we'll meet any yogis on the internet is because they're far beyond that. Their understanding far traverses this little niche of YouTube. They're beyond that. Now we're on the path to meet somebody like that, I think. And now here's the thing. This is where a fallacy comes into place, is thinking that you need somebody higher than yourself to tell you the truth. I think we can all figure it out, but people do help us out. And I think in that sense, everybody here tonight who is asking these questions, digging deeper, we disagree on certain things, and we call it out by being respectful, though. That is leading to the truth, and the same idea as what these supposed yogis have been seeking. I don't think you'll find it there. I think this is a closer representation of that through open discussion, because how else can you find it? You know,
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Artie man, Artemis Moon.
What do you guys think of past life regressions?
I think they're highly subjective.
I think they're,
and more importantly, I think they're also highly front loaded.
Front loaded? What do you mean?
Well, there's the problem of validating the testimony of the person that you're asking to do the past life regression for you. And that's always tricky, because...
What about, like, genetically?
What do you mean genetically?
Like, on the scientific side? Like, other than what people say? Like...
Well,
so does DNA...
Memories
does DNA
being
hold...
passed down through genetics. Have you ever heard of
does
that?
DNA hold memory? Does memory come down with DNA through the family line?
Yeah. It's almost like instinct, like putting in instinct, like memories into your genetic line. And so you get like,
well, the way it works is that you're
that's like similar to reincarnation. So
the way it works is when you're ready to reincarnate, your consciousness will synchronize to a fetus that's about 5 weeks old, and when you localize to the fetus, the heartbeat will start, and when the heartbeat starts, information from the mind will start to shape the DNA as well as the body, and that'll create the changes to the fetus that will eventually result in you being reborn. So the DNA is like...
Do you believe in reincarnation?
Well, sure.
Okay, so
Now, Jen.
what dictates the time like that you reincarnate?
You mean how much time goes by between when you die and when you're
Yeah,
reborn?
like when you die and reincarnate, what dictates that? Like,
Well, that's a really good question. So when you die, your consciousness is at a certain level of complexity. And then what'll happen is it'll start to decompose. And basically you'll think away all your thoughts. And then eventually there'll be something residual, which I call the personality, which is it's like a type of 0 point energy. So it's a non-zero lowest energy. That's what a 0 point energy is. And that'll sort of float around until it finds a fetus that it's sufficiently coherent with. So the idea with reincarnation is you'll take birth to parents that have between them the most similar qualities to your soul. That's why people share qualities with their parents. And I would estimate for people who have no initiation to yoga or anything like that, it's about 10 to 20 years. For myself, is 100. So it really depends on the person. Just based on the reincarnations that I've met, it's
do you
around
think
10
there's
20
more
years.
more souls than there are present here on Earth?
Yes, there are several souls that are not reborn yet, and they
Do you
kind of
think
watch
that
us
we
the
could
way
hit a
we watch
limit
TV.
to where every soul is here on Earth?
Is there a finite number of souls?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a finite number of souls.
Well, sure, they had to come from somewhere. Just like there's a finite number of living entities on Earth, there's also a finite number of souls.
Well, there's a finite number of entities on Earth currently.
Yeah, do you think we're at our limit, and that like that's the
So-
whole idea of NPC is we're creating NPCs at some point?
I think the reason there's so many NPCs is because they were animals in their past lives, and they basically became human because there was an explosion in the number of humans starting a couple hundred. I'm not sure when it really started picking up, but as you probably know, there's a lot more people walking around than there used to be.
I mean, like, what would happen if the limit hit its max? Like,
It wouldn't. It wouldn't. It would just
How-
it would just be that lower and lower life forms would
Would there
become
be no-
humans.
So
numbers?
how do you know that there's a finite number of souls?
Because of conservation of energy. Like, basically think of it this way: if there was an infinity of souls, where did they come from? Because we're on a finite planet.
Do you think we're going somewhere? Like, I mean, like reincarnation, do you think it's just over and over and over and over again? Or do you think you're trying to hit a point to move on?
Yeah, you can eventually get enlightened, and then you can basically choose whether you reincarnate or not. Because the thing that
So
the thing
then
that
where do you
drives
go?
reincarnation, the way to understand why reincarnation happens is because this consciousness is an electromagnetic field, which means it has magnetic properties to it. So it's literally a magnetic attraction that represents all of your desires. So when you have no more desires, there's no more magnetism to draw you to a new fetus. So at that point, you wouldn't reincarnate.
Would that be
So-
like higher conscious?
Yeah, exactly. You progress through the stages of enlightenment, and then eventually you hit the top, right? Because you go up and up and up, and eventually there's a point where you basically
But then
can't
what?
go any higher.
Like that? Then
Jen,
what?
how many times do you believe you've been reincarnated?
I think we've all been reincarnated, basically, an uncountable number of times. Like we've all basically, we're probably dinosaurs back in the day.
So all right, my turn. So we've all reincarnated multiple times, and then a moment ago you said that there were souls that have yet to incarnate.
Those souls would have reincarnated many, many, many times, and then made the decision not to reincarnate and instead just remain in that sort of inter-life space where they watch what happens on Earth the way we watch TV.
Are there new souls and old souls?
So wait, there are souls that are watching Earth like they're watching TV?
Yeah, that's why people used to do ancestor worship. So I think is it Gandalf or Sauron? Sorry, you asked something?
There are souls just hanging around, like just watching. And so, Jen, is Earth the only living thing in the universe? Are there other planets with life?
I think there probably are other planets with life because all you would need would be a similar set of circumstances what you have here. What you appear to need is water that's landlocked. Like
but
the
so
moon,
so there's life. Is there sentient, intelligent life on other planets anywhere?
probably.
Probably. Okay. And do they have souls?
Sure. The
Okay.
nature of their
And
consciousness
so, does
is
anybody on Earth ever reincarnate on another planet, on some other being?
I have no idea, and I don't know how you would be able to determine something like that.
Well, I have no idea how we would determine
Good answer.
anyone reincarnating on Earth. So I'm just trying to understand what kind of things you know about reincarnation, and then ultimately, but at the end of all this, I would really like to know, how do you know this?
Well, essentially because I've kind of always known it. It's just something that I didn't really ever not believe in it, and I think that if you don't accept reincarnation, there's a lot of unanswerable questions like where does your personality come from? And I think anyone who has kids can say that their children's personalities like
Isn't
basically.
that an argument from
Can you
incredulity?
let me finish, please? It's not an argument from incredulity. Can you let me finish, please? Basically, your children are more than just a combination of their parents, right? There's something in your child that's unique that doesn't come from either of the parents, and that's the part of them that's the reincarnated soul. I don't really think it's an argument from incredulity. It just depends on what you want philosophically from science. Do you want answers to everything, or do you want to have mysteries? Because I don't really think science without reincarnation can explain where personality comes from.
Well, making up answers doesn't make answers true.
It's not a made-up answer. It's what was taught in the tradition since the beginning
Well,
of.
you just asked, do you want answers to everything, or, I mean, what's the option? The option is that
Well,
we discover things.
some people appear to want to have mysteries that aren't solved.
Well, I don't care what other people want regarding mysteries. We progress by discovering things. We progress through discovery. The mystery, it drives discovery. So if we discover something that we don't understand, then discovery is what leads the mystery to be solved. So
yeah, I've looked at the different possible explanations, and I don't see any other possible explanation than reincarnation to explain the personality.
Well, I forget how you worded it a moment ago, and that's the reason I asked if it was an argument from incredulity, because it seemed like it, and pardon me, but I don't remember the exact wording you used, but it was something like you either believe in reincarnation, or where else does the personality come from? Isn't that what you said?
What I said is I think that one of the stronger arguments in favor of reincarnation, other than just simple conservation of energy, is this mysterious origin of the personality, because the people who deny reincarnation cannot proffer a counter thesis for where the personality originates from.
People who deny reincarnation cannot counter thesis to where the personality comes from. Is that what you said?
I've never seen a sensible explanation of where personality comes from reincarnation deniers. No.
Okay.
I gotta go, but you guys have a good one.
Ave Aquevale, my friend.
Later.
Wouldn't neuroscience have something to say about that?
Like I said, their answers leave something to be desired, and I don't really think they can predict a personality. They basically say, oh, it's a random combination of genetics. That's their answer, basically.
So why does reincarnation fit the bill when it comes to understanding where the personality comes from? How does that
your
even
personality, your personality is what's reincarnated.
but personalities change.
Yeah, they can change. That doesn't violate.
They change throughout a human lifetime.
You don't change that much. You have a daughter, right?
And in many cases, they change drastically.
You have a daughter, right?
Have I mentioned that?
I thought you did at one point, but I'm sorry.
I do. No, I do.
You do have a daughter, and has her personality changed since she was about 2 years old, or has it just developed?
we just entered a territory that I'm not really willing to go, and there's a reason for that, and it's
That's fine. We don't have to. We don't have to talk about her. We can just. It's just easier from a parent perspective because you're actually watching the development firsthand. But even for
I didn't
yourself,
raise her. I didn't raise her, so we'll leave it there.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So for yourself, do you think there's something in your personality that has remained consistent throughout your whole life?
Mostly no. My personality has been a steady, gradual evolution, and every aspect of my personality has changed at some point on different levels throughout the journey. Not one part of me today is the person I was 40 years ago. Not one part.
Okay. I guess I feel differently. I feel like the personality I had when I was a child, I've obviously grown and learned a lot since I was a baby, but I still have the same basic attributes of my personality. Like I asked my dad to describe me when I was a kid, and he said I was headstrong and independent. And I would say that those things still describe me to this day. Obviously, I've changed and developed, and my consciousness has become more complex, but there's some sort of nugget of genness that has remained the same throughout my life. That's not to say personalities can't change. It's just that they have a certain momentum to them that remains quasi constant. Like your personality isn't changing day to day. It has some consistency, right?
Certainly there's some consistency, but honestly, it is a day to day. It's a slow day to day because over the course of decades and many years, ultimately every part of me has changed.
And it changes life on life. The only question
So,
is,
I mean, it changes so slowly that it's barely perceivable at all unless you look back on partial sections, 6 months, years, and you see various incremental changes, plateaus and whatnot. But it's not something that's noticeable. Your personality doesn't know. It's not noticeably changed day to day per se, but it is in fact us. It's like anything else watching a plant grow. If you walked out every single day, you're not going to really notice much. But if you think back, oh, a week ago this thing was only an inch tall, and now it's 2 weeks later and it's 4 inches tall. So if you watch a plant grow every single day, you don't notice it. Your personality changes much like a plant grows. It's slow enough that you don't notice it day to day. But over several days or months or weeks or years, there are incremental changes that are slow. And then there are breaking points where you might have plateaus and not much change. And then there are points where there will be drastic change in a short period of time. But if you look back over 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you can very clearly see that virtually every part of you has changed. Even mentally, your spirit, your consciousness, everything about you, everything the way you think, everything has changed.
Now to jump in, I would have to disagree. I don't think that I have totally changed. I think some things about me have changed, but who I am at my deepest core, I don't think can change.
What does that mean, Josh? What has not changed?
Something
What part
deep,
of you has not changed?
the deepest part of myself, the part of myself beyond the ego, beyond any notion of myself from how I see it now.
Could you be more specific?
Okay.
But wait a sec, Rufus. What about you could go to your mother or relatives and they would all say, "Oh, Rufus, as a kid was just like that, and that's his main attribute," and you're still the same now. Oh, that's Rufus. So
I can tell you that I have certain core things that have not changed with me.
yeah. I think everyone does.
Yeah.
Can you
I've
define
always
it in
had
a
it, yeah, and I can be
non-general
very
way?
specific.
okay,
Like,
Rufus,
I can give you an example. I can give a direct example. Everybody about me knows that and I'm sure you'll know it when I say this. I've had this said about me throughout my life that whatever I want to do, I will do. Whatever I don't really want to do, I'll half-ass, and that's a truth, and nobody can deny that.
You know what, Josh? You got me right there. I just changed my mind.
Rufus, have you always been a skeptical contrarian? It's okay to say
No,
yes. Rufus.
no, actually, I haven't. I haven't. Mostly yes, but no. Truly no. that part has mostly changed.
Have
But
you
what
always-
Josh said a second ago, Josh got me. Josh just fucking got, and I have to be intellectually honest. I have to be true. Josh just got me
That
because
is
he said something. And I forget exactly what he said word for word, but he made me realize that there is a part of me that literally has not changed. I
yes.
have always chosen my own path.
There you go. Same
Did-
difference.
Did your parents give that to you, or was that already in your soul?
I gotta go with you, Jen. Nobody gave that to me.
They
So
didn't teach.
whether
They didn't
I
teach
don't
you.
know what a soul is, so I don't know any better way to describe it. It was always part of me. So
Well, your
I'm not
soul
gonna
is your
I'm not gonna use the term soul because I don't know what a damn soul is. Nobody can define what a soul is.
just think of it as your consciousness, your
And
personality.
I'd agree.
Well,
Nobody
I
gave
just
that to me.
conceded. I just want to let you guys know. I right before your eyes, I just conceded the point because something that Josh said sparked something that made me recognize that there was a part of me that literally has not changed as far as I can remember.
Exactly, and that's all. That's the point I was making. A lot of things change about us, but there's something core within us that does not change.
And that'll be what reincarnates when your body in this life dies. And that won't be something that your next parents teach you. It'll be something that was already
And
there. They'll teach you tons of
Okay,
things. But they
now
won't.
that's taking it a little bit further than I would go, because I don't necessarily believe that reincarnates. I think that let's look at it like this: energy configuration. Does an atom decide, what it's going to be? Is it going to be helium, nitrogen, and so on and so forth? It just it always was. It just kind of is. I don't think that it's like, to me, that just sees it as taking it a step
so
into our realm, which is where I'm trying to step out of.
okay, so I want to ask Jen a very specific question. And please, Jen, don't think, please, I mean no disrespect. I might use some language that could be potentially, I don't know, arrogant or, offensive. I mean no disrespect. I know that you have a strong science background and a very definite science vernacular. So do us a favor, do me a favor. Try to explain this without overly dazzling us with your science vernacular. Okay?
That's actually
How,
what I've been trying to do because there's actually.
I haven't asked my question yet. So, all right, I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish your sentence.
I just want to make it clear that that is what I've been trying to do. That's why there's no math on my website, and these concepts have never been easy to access for anyone for all of human history. So I think
Okay.
everybody give themselves a break if they don't understand it right away. I mean, it took me a great deal of time just to be able to put this into words. So just be patient with yourselves, if
Okay,
possible.
so here's my question. I'll try to be as specific as I can. And it's going to be I'm going to require or ask for a scientific answer, but try to keep it, just dumb it down for us. You know what I mean? um so this aspect of me that I just a moment ago conceded never changes. And you said that's the part that's going to reincarnate. I recognize this aspect of me as being a product of my brain, the synapses of a physical mind. So I would like for you to explain to me how this aspect of me, which is truly, as far as I know, nothing more than the aspect or an emergent property of my physical mind, how in hell does that carry on to some other living being in some reincarnate way? How the hell does that happen?
In short,
Can I interrupt for 1 second before you answer that, Jen? When you do say mind, do you take into account the heart and the stomach part of the mind, or are you only talking about your brain?
No, I'm talking about my brain.
Okay. I just think it's very important to keep in mind that there's more going on in you than your brain. that work in conjunction with each other. Okay,
Indeed.
so I'll
Indeed.
butt out now. I'll butt out now.
Actually, that's a good point.
Well, in short, influence is actually kind of getting to what I was saying here is this distinction. Do you believe that your mind is the same thing as your brain?
I don't see any evidence to suggest otherwise, so that's why I'm asking.
Okay, well, I can understand why you'd think that. And when I had my conversation with JF, he thought the same thing. And this is a very common belief. And I just don't think that's the case. I think the mind is separate from the body. And this is a philosophical distinction of what you call dualism, which is mind and body are separate, versus non-dualism, which is that mind and body are essentially the same thing.
And I'd like to add to that and say that I'm kind of the latter. I don't believe in dualism. I believe that it's not that mind and body are the same thing, that everything is of the same thing. It is all unified and connected. So I can't, from my experience, I cannot agree to dualism. I'll just...
Well, I've already admitted earlier that I've acknowledged and that there is definitely something weird going on. But until I know what that is, I'm not going to ascribe or believe in anything.
Now, okay, let's say this,
I'm not
Rufus.
gonna I'm not gonna assign things that I don't understand, and
Now,
I'm not gonna fall for word salad until I grasp the concept. You know what I mean? So
now, here's the thing. Do you think any of us have done that? Have used the word
well,
salad?
fucking, I mean, not that any of you, I'm not accusing anybody on the panel, but you know, the first thing that came to my mind when you asked me that was fucking Deepak Chopra is like the master of word salad.
And I mean, I guess I was talking about us, you know, like we're all kind of our degree of understanding. Now, do you think any of us, like Jen, Influence, Richard, or you, or anybody else, Zero, or anybody here tonight has used this supposed word salad?
I think that we, and I do include myself, I think that we have all done our best to describe something extremely abstract.
Yes.
And I think we're all literally just scratching and clawing and trying to define something that is so far undefinable.
It's a tetrahedron in a three-dimensional world. We're just catching a cross-reference.
There may not
Object.
even be words invented yet to describe the thing we're trying to talk about.
Nailed it.
They haven't.
I think I'm right on with you. I think we're together there.
The body generates a bioelectric field.
Gotcha.
That is what the full consciousness is, and a subset of that is what you experience as subjective consciousness.
Okay, I'm on board.
I'm there
I'm
with
right
you.
there
too.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that in and of itself implies reincarnation because of quantum mechanical laws.
But can it prove it though?
I think it can. Fellow man disagrees with me, but I mean, all proofs depend on whether you accept the axioms, right?
Now,
so there are.
It gets a very good point, and I'd like to say I agree with you that I do think that and Rufus, you know, corrected me. It was Einstein that said that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. I agree with that sentiment, but now do I think that I have ever existed as I am? I can't say I can, because my body, and as we discussed earlier before we got off topic, my body kind of dictates that as well. It's that cross reference that the disturbance, the contagion to the system that we kind of
Okay,
discussed earlier.
so the real question, energy cannot be created or destroyed. All right, so when you die, all the cells in your body will break down. Bacteria will digest your cells, and they will produce heat as a byproduct.
But what does your consciousness produce?
So literally every cell in your body will be transferred into heat energy as it degrades.
Sure, but what does your consciousness
That
break
is
down
the
into?
real, that's the question of the day, isn't it? That's the $64 million question.
I think there's a lot of evidence to support the position that consciousness is wave-like. For example, when people do sleep studies, they can measure brain waves.
Now, Jen, I'd like to ask you: have you ever dabbled in lucid dreaming or astral projections?
I've done lucid dreaming before. I don't do astral projections though, because I consider that to be too dangerous, and there's not really anything that I want out of it. So
Now, I just to dig a little deeper, what do you consider dangerous about astral?
well, there's a lot of other conscious entities out there, and they're not all benevolent, right? There's every different type of conscious entity you could imagine out there. And if you astral project, you're sort of leaving your body and you're allowing for the possibility of being possessed by one of these entities. And I don't think anyone would want that. Possession.
Trans-dimensional
Now,
being.
I would say that would come down to the strength of the individual that is projecting outwardly.
You're right. I just don't see the benefit of astral projection, so I wouldn't put myself in.
Now, to give my reasoning behind it, I see it as just like lucid dreaming, as a preparation for death. That's how I see it. Like to learn how to carry your consciousness. Again, we were talking about enlightenment earlier, and to me, true enlightenment would be escaping the Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail, escaping reincarnation itself, or the typical means of death, and that takes a true level of self mastery. And to me, a person seeking that would try to kind of go down the astral projection route, because it teaches you how to perceive in a different way outside of the body, which is the closest thing to death we can imagine.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, there are differing opinions among masters as to whether astral projection is a viable practice. There was a woman named Mira Alfasa who collaborated with an Indian yogi a while back, and she was known for astral projecting. And so this is one of those things where people who are, initiated, they may have different opinions just based on what tradition they're part of. So I'm fine with your position.
No, so you're somebody that bases a lot on, so you stand by tradition, I gather.
Well, yeah, we believe that tradition is a source of strength. So if we cut ourselves off from what gave us what we have in the first place, we're going to lose everything. It's kind of like the idea of a tree without its roots will die.
I mean,
so we all remember the value of traditional teachings, because they're what allowed us to keep this thing going for so long.
And I understand that, but I guess kind of where I'm at is, I look at it, to use a quote from a Castaneda book. The sorcerers of antiquity were morbid beings, and we've developed beyond that. I kind of see that. I wouldn't use the word teacher. I didn't have a real teacher, but I had somebody I looked up to, a very special person that taught me a lot and led me in certain paths to see for myself. And I just can't agree with that position totally. I think that it's astral projection is and yogis in general, they're only projecting in a certain way. They're going off tradition, whereas it comes down to, I don't know, have you ever heard of like the Impersonal Life or the Betty book or anything like that? That kind of talks about a more impersonal God, one that isn't as directed through this tradition. It's I mean, even Edgar Casey really touched on this. My studies.
Why call it God?
It's a word that we can all commonly agree on. I think that's
Well, I don't agree on it. So
okay.
not
Well,
necessarily.
how do you feel about the absolute or infinity?
How do I feel about infinity? I've never met him.
Okay, well that's God, infinity, or the absolute, the one, the all, the everything.
The divine, the architect, my friend.
Everything.
What the divine? What does that mean? The divine. What does that
Okay,
actually?
the script writer. You say you're a determinist. You're a determinist.
Uh-oh.
Well, the one that wrote the script for that determinism to take place.
A determinist has nothing to do with believing in there's someone
it doesn't
behind the
take
scenes
belief.
writing a script.
It doesn't take belief. You by means of being a determinist have decided that it must already be written. Therefore, something must have written.
No, 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 no. You've got determinism wrong. First of all, I haven't decided anything. What I've done personally, I have accepted what I come to understand as causal instances that are precursors.
Cause and
Okay,
effect. Cause and
You
effect.
guys, I don't want to ruin the flow of the chat, but I'm gonna crash poo, and I just want to say Ave Aquavale, my friends.
Gandalf, you know you're always welcome.
I don't speak Spanish.
Hail.
Love you, Gandalf. Have a good night.
It's
I think
Latin
that,
for,
I was about to say that was Latin.
See you later, bro.
basically hail and farewell.
Hey, well, Gandalf, man, come chat with me sometime. I'd love to just catch up with
Hey,
you,
for
bro.
sure, man. And I'm gonna hold you to episode 14 being a Bigfoot show.
You know what? Pinky promise right now. I'm holding my pinky up. Episode 14, we'll do a Bigfoot show for you, bro, for sure.
Fucking A, buddy.
For sure. We'll do a Bigfoot show, man.
All right. Good night, you guys.
Good night,
See you,
bro.
buddy.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we kind of got off subject there, but determinism basically says, though, that everything is as it is, and it must be as so. And to me, that says that
No,
it's pre-written. And how can it be any other way?
No, Josh. No, you've got it wrong. No, you've got it wrong. Determinism doesn't say that things must be so.
How can it not say that?
Because it doesn't make conclusions. It's not a positive assertion.
But that's a paradox, man. That totally is.
No.
Because
Mute yourself, Simon.
Determinism simply recognizes that your ability to have free will is simply based on pre-existing causes.
Which
External
means
forces,
that you can change
external
nothing.
forces act on you, and they cause you to act and think and behave in a certain way.
Yes. Which at its root says you have no control. That's its root of that.
In a way, yes, you can draw that line. Yes.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Now at that point, we have no control. Well, then something, unless it's pure chaos and anarchy, then something must have control. One of the two.
Well, first of all, chaos and anarchy are not synonymous.
I mean,
a lot of people.
Chaos means lack of order. And anarchy could be said that it could be lack of order in some regard.
Lack of ruler.
Anarchy is like atheism. It's a
Not practice.
A or
Though.
anarchy. It basically means no archy, nothing over
But if America today practiced anarchy, then it would be slaughter and death.
No. Again, you're misconstruing. You're drawing a parallel. They're not synonymous.
They're not.
Slaughter,
but I'm
chaos
saying
and anarchy are not synonymous.
You're right. They're not. But if America today declared anarchy, it would be slaughter and mayhem. It's not anarchy because you could do anything you wanted to do. And that's the truth. That's what real anarchy is. Now, if America today, if Donald Trump and all these little nitwits came on the radios and said, it's anarchy, do whatever the fuck you want, a lot of people are going to die. And that's the fact of the matter. The market's going to crash. Everything's going to fall apart. Anyhow. Yeah, but it's all going to fall apart if anarchy is declared.
The illusion is going to fall apart. We already have anarchy. We don't have any government.
But we do.
No government.
The police can come and arrest you.
They're not government. They're just some goons.
So they're
like
private.
Walmart.
I mean, you're right to a degree, but there's a construct there. Anarchy means there's no construct. Anarchy,
No, anarchy means
it's,
there's no rulers.
It just means that there's no one ruling over you.
yeah,
That's all.
but okay, now
We have oligarchy, we have, theocracy, democracy, anarchy.
sure,
You know what I mean? There's all
and
kind
a
of archies.
republic, and there's a republic.
Archy.
There's a democratic republic as well, which is what it was. America was defined as a representative republic. That's something different than an oligarchy.
The republic has been overtaken and it is dormant since 1871. We have not had actual government since 1871.
So you're saying it's all privatized? It's already anarchy. It's already
United States is a foreign corporation that is pretending to be a government and is in the business of human trafficking.
Yeah.
And you are an employee / stock that is humanly trafficked.
Now this is true, but at the same time, you yourself. But here's where it differs. You can come out with your life, and you can do what you want to do in America. You can start a business if you want to, and you can live the life you want to live. Now that's where it lacks totalitarianism. It doesn't have that dictatorship in that regard. But things are changing. I mean,
yep.
But America, I wouldn't say at this point is actual anarchy.
It doesn't have a government. There's no local government, so.
I mean, you have local government. You do have local.
So
they're all corporations.
But you still have local government that makes laws and says you can do this or that.
No, they're not laws. They're not local governments. They are corporations.
But you can't.
Corporate policy, and they make what do you call them? It's all corporate policy.
And I get that.
Yeah, he's right. Everything about your life is contract. Every single aspect of your life is contract.
But you have no choice.
It's all mercantile. It's all commerce.
You have no choice. Therefore, it cannot be.
Choice.
Therefore, it cannot be anarchy.
Everybody has a choice.
But no, you can't.
To reincarnate, to keep it on topic.
I mean, it all ties together. It really does. This is a deep discussion. In all honesty, it all connects. And
so, speaking of that subject, there's a question I have for Jen. Jen, you mentioned something earlier about making a choice to reincarnate.
Yeah.
So again, I want to bring it back to the epistemology. How do you know that? How do you know that there's even a choice? So once I die, and whatever aspect of me dissipates into some wave form in a quantum realm in the universe, and somehow is recorded somewhere in whatever molecules or energy of the universe, somehow at some wave form, how is it that part of me is able to make a choice to, I don't know, reincarnate, come back, to take a new body, to make a new soul of myself? And how does it work? How do you know?
Well, for most people, it's not a conscious choice. It's just to do with what we call unfulfilled desires. So there's something in your soul that still yearns for something material, whether that's sex or food or something more complex. You'll continue to reincarnate into a life that can potentially give you what it is that you want through magnetism, because you're attracted to your parents because they possess your qualities. Like, your parents are your parents because they have the closest match to your own soul qualities, but you didn't necessarily consciously choose that. The conscious awareness of the choice comes in when you have a higher state of consciousness and you have enough power to say, I'm going to go into this life for this purpose, and I'm making the choice to reincarnate. Whereas for most people, they're just more or less magnetically sucked into it.
So now I'm confused. Are you a determinist or not? Because a second ago you said you didn't necessarily choose that.
Well, it depends on the person, right? It depends how much work you've done to purify your own consciousness. For me, it was a choice to come back 100 years after I died to prove a point. For most people, it's just a matter of time until there's a life waiting for them that's sufficiently close to basically what we call fruit their karmas. So to create a situation where you're basically back where you started so that you can keep going on that path of
So,
manifesting
so you
your
chose, so you chose to come back to prove a point,
yeah.
and how do you prove that point?
Well, the point I'm trying to prove is the Vedic origin of knowledge. So the way to prove that would be to demonstrate superior knowledge and then assert that its origin was the Veda.
Okay, and then assert to demonstrate superior knowledge. Okay, so far I'm with you, but then you leap to assert.
Well, sure, it's my knowledge. I get to say where it came from.
Well, the question was, how do you prove it?
The proof is the knowledge.
So you demonstrate superior knowledge, and then you make assertions, and that's what you call proof.
Is there any other way to make a proof?
Yes, future testable predictions. That's what science does. That's what we call proofs. Something that other people can verify.
I guess in this case, they're going to have to take my word for it unless they can present an alternative thesis as to where that knowledge came from.
Okay, so can you recognize that that actually doesn't qualify as proof?
It does in my tradition, but not in the Western tradition.
In your tradition. So you make assertions, you demonstrate superior intellect, you make assertions, and in your tradition that qualifies as proof.
Yeah, the first step would be to qualify your testimony as authoritative by demonstrating a mastery of the existing knowledge basis. And then afterwards, your assertions are considered authoritative unless someone else who's also authoritative challenges them.
Okay, well, I'm challenging you now, and so far you haven't even demonstrated that what you are doing is qualified as proof. And so I don't understand what tradition exactly is it you're referring to that identifies making assertions as truth, as proof?
Well, it's not assertions that are proof, it's the process of validating your testimony as authoritative that then renders your assertions to be in line with truth.
Okay, so validating your testimony as authoritative. So you make testimony, you have to validate it to be authoritative. How do we do that? How do we validate your testimony to be authoritative?
Well, there are many ways you can do it. You can take a look at what the work that I've done so far and decide if you agree that it's in line with science and that it represents knowledge. Or you can talk to other people who are also accepted within the community as being masters and see whether they accept it.
That actually, again, and pardon me for pushing, but that doesn't qualify as proof because you said I can look at your body of work and then I can decide. That was the word you chose. I can look at your stuff and I can decide. That's not how proof in science works. I don't You don't just look at stuff and make a decision. It has to be verifiable. Other people have to be able to make future predictions based on this new batch of knowledge. Otherwise, it's not considered evidence or proof. So
Well,
we can't just like if you were a scientist, you wrote a paper on anti-climate change or whatever. You wrote a scientific. Other scientists to verify peer review, they don't just look at your paper and make a decision. They have to look at your new finding and be able to reproduce it and make future testable predictions. That's science. That's how we verify things. So you don't just look at something and make a decision to believe it. It has to be verified, truly verified. Otherwise, it's not proof.
well, yeah, you
Right?
make a decision to believe it based on the fact that it makes predictions, and my model does make predictions.
Okay, make a prediction. What predictions has your model make?
My model can predict dreams. My model can actually predict everything.
Wait a minute. Your model can predict dreams.
Yep.
You mean like specific dreams or the fact that people have dreams?
The fact that people have dreams.
Your model can predict that people have dreams?
Yes.
You're a little bit behind the gun because people have had dreams since people have been people. So what have you actually predicted?
The mechanism.
The thing that everybody already does?
The mechanism of dreaming. My model also predicts stellar formation, if you want something more impressive, and it predicts nuclear reactivity. Those are things no one else has been able to do.
Well, that's certainly very interesting. I'm happy to entertain that, but staying on topic in the realm of reincarnation and the soul and whatnot. This is where we were. So instead of veering off into stellar formation, another conversation, how do we make future testable predictions? You said you can predict dreams. Your model predicts what? That people have dreams?
My model can give you the mechanism of dreaming, something that modern science can't do.
Is this a model that you've adopted from things that you've learned, or is this something that you've understood your entire life? Is this entirely new territory?
I developed the model of the quantum mind that I use.
Is it peer reviewed? Has anybody else looked at it? Like serious people other than a bunch of dumbass YouTubers?
I haven't published it. Why would I?
Why indeed?
I don't accept the validity of modern science. And I'm proving that point by not publishing it. I want to destroy their credibility. And I think I've done a pretty good job so far, given that my theory's been plagiarized by people that won a math contest using my measurement limit model, where basically explains the connection between space and mass based on entropy. I've also had
wait, who did that? Who did that?
Some Chinese people. I didn't actually record the scientific journal, but yeah, they won a math contest using something out of my model. But anyway, I don't know who it is. I didn't keep I just didn't care. I'm just happy that the information's out there, not so concerned that people are copying it. And also I can give you a link to a publication that is validation of how my model predicts stellar formation.
What is it you have to give me to validate that?
I'll pull up the link and I'll put it in the chat.
So regarding the soul,
So just to come back to your question, because I think it is an important question, and this is something I was trying to get at the other day, is that we have to ask ourselves the question, what exactly makes testimony authoritative? Because there's a problem of a lot of, basically liars saying nonsense and people believing them. So if we can get a grip on...
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it back to that.
Well, we have to have some means of judging whether someone's testimony is valid. And this is a question we should all be asking ourselves and attempting to answer as a group. Because we don't believe in blind faith. We want people to use discernment when they undertake this journey. And so just being told something and expected to believe it is not really going to be meaningful. But if you can think it through yourself and decide that it's reasonable, that will be a lot more meaningful going forward because you made the decision yourself to believe something.
So are we talking about science or philosophy? Because the way you just described it is how philosophy is done. We think about it, you decide that it's reasonable, and then you go with it. That's philosophy. That's
science, philosophy, and religion aren't supposed to be separate.
They're one and the same.
They don't work if they're not together. If you if you don't use philosophy, you don't know how you know what you know. If you don't use science, you don't know if what you're saying is valid. And if you don't use religion, you don't see the context in which your assertions are taking place.
Actually, I think we could drop religion entirely. I think philosophy would cover that aspect. I think philosophy has done a great job covering that aspect.
Well, that's your own
Mm,
aesthetic preference. It's not mine, and I'm basically fine with that aesthetic preference so long as you don't insist on me embracing it as well.
I don't insist anything. This is why we have conversations. We're trying
My
to persuade
religion
each
is
other.
We're based. Well, I'm against my religious tradition. In my tradition, we don't solicit. We consider that degenerate. So for me to attempt to persuade you to join my religion would actually be going against my traditional religious teachings.
I thought that, I mean, the way you describe your religion, your religious teachings, I'm almost not surprised to hear you say that, but in a way I am. I thought you were either agnostic or atheist. But I've also heard you talk about a scientific priesthood. So I'm curious, what religion exactly are you, and would you identify as?
Well, the eternal religion, the natural tradition, has no name. And so the way I would describe it would be a scientific approach to religion, i.e., beliefs, but valid beliefs, i.e., the belief in reincarnation. Even though not everybody transcends quantum mechanics, it's reasonable to have the default hypothesis that reincarnation is true because there's basically no evidence against it and tons of evidence in support of it.
There's a name for something like this. In last century, there's a guy by the name of Rudolf Steiner who created anthroposophy. So there's a name for something that we're talking about.
Lots of people have sort of gotten to close to varying degrees. They've approached this idea to varying degrees because the truth is a unitary thing. There's only one truth. So eventually it's going to converge. If people have the intention of reaching truth, their results and their beliefs are going to converge at some stage. Think of it like climbing a mountain, a huge mountain. At the bottom of the mountain, everything's different. You might have completely different terrain from one place to another, but as you ascend the mountain, everything becomes more similar until you get to the apex, and then you realize it's just one mountain that people took different journeys to get to the top of. And that's what truth is. It's just one thing. And we all have our own subjective bias and our own personal spin that we put on it. But if we have the intention to approach truth, we all have the same intention. So eventually there's going to be some type of convergence between our results.
All right, that's a good metaphor for truth.
Yeah, and the main goal of my religion is truth.
I mean, we still haven't reached a point where we have actually verified any proof of anything.
Well, I put a link in the chat where it explains how stars are formed. That's the prediction of my model. So I think that's pretty valid as a proof. And then there's other things like how to predict nuclear reactivity, which is also part of my model, which I haven't shared because I know as soon as I do, it'll get plagiarized. And I don't really want to put that information out there until I have more power because I don't want people abusing the teachings.
Until you have more power?
I need to be able to control how these teachings are applied because if I allow them to go out to people who can't handle them, I'm basically enabling a situation like what we have today, only possibly worse.
A situation like we have.
You have to understand that we're in the situation we're in right now today, largely because what are traditionally known as secret techniques are being abused by people who are incompetent, right? Like mind control techniques are being used in a non-benevolent way. And that's a huge problem because people believe false things and they're absolutely unwilling to change their minds and they're acting in a way that is doing others and themselves a great deal of damage.
Mm-hmm.
It would be very irresponsible for me to, let's say if
you think those people are incompetent? The people employing those mind control techniques on the society are incompetent?
In my eyes, they're incompetent because they're not using them for the purpose that it was intended. They're
Well,
competent.
that's not the definition of
competent
incompetent. I mean, they're
competent
doing a
in the-
good job. They're doing what they
They're
want.
getting their result. Well, I think their stronghold of power is weakening. So I don't
I mean,
think
I agree. It's nefarious. I
I
wouldn't
don't think
qualify it as incompetent.
they have some degree of proficiency, and that's the problem. Because you can use the techniques without actually having perfect consciousness, so there's a tremendous potential for abuse. And that's what I have to make sure doesn't happen.
So I'm not looking at the moment. Literally, I'm just sitting back and I'm deeply into this conversation. And you said you dropped a link. Please remind me, what was that link for again?
It's a validation of what I said earlier about how my model predicts star formation. So the earlier model for star formation was something called accretion, which is obviously bullshit.
Yep.
My model predicts it using something called quantum state exclusion, which we started to get into on our last stream where we were talking about electric universe. And this model has been validated because a star has been observed being formed in real time. Because my model basically predicts that stars will form at a near instantaneous rate. It won't be instantaneous because nothing is really instantaneous in that sense. But yeah, this idea that stars are formed over long periods of time is false. And my model predicts that they should be formed quickly. And this has indeed been observed, as it says in the article, for the first time.
Okay. I'll be happy to look at that. Did you drop it in? If you would, give it to me in Skype so I have my own personal copy. And when the hangout is over, it doesn't get lost in conversation and I can't come back and find it. If you give it to me in Skype, if you got that link handy, then it'll sit in my conversation with you on Skype and it won't go anywhere. I'll be happy to look at that.
Sure, and I've got posts on the blog as well that explain exactly how that works because the article published says, well, we don't really know, blah, blah, blah. We don't really know. It's mystery, but I actually have the mechanism for the formation.
So the link is what? Is this an article you wrote or a scientific paper you created? What is this link exactly?
It's an article that came out by scientists that I wasn't connected to, but it came out after I put my theory out there. So I don't really care if they came up with a theory on their own or if I came up with it and they copied it. I really don't care. I just want the information to be out there.
So you're linking me to an article that was written by some other scientist claiming to be the person who's responsible for the idea of the article.
No, they don't have a mechanism for it. They just say that they've observed stars being formed.
Okay, so you didn't write this article.
No. Like I said, I'm not going to help them do more damage, and I don't.
Okay, so I'm just trying to look. It's late and I'm buzzed, and I'm just trying to understand. You gave me a link to an article written by someone else, which is proof of your model. Is that what you sent me?
It's evidence in support of my model. So my model makes a prediction.
Okay.
And that is evidence that is in support of the predictions that the model makes.
Okay. So what can I look at that would literally give me a good definition of quote unquote your model?
I don't actually think I have the model written out on the blog because, again, I don't want it plagiarized. And the stuff's already been plagiarized so much, like I don't want to give them any more information. But I can tell you in private how the model works. It would probably take a few hours to go through the whole thing, but it does predict everything. So if you are interested, I would suggest a couple of articles I've written specifically about how the planet has evolved throughout its approximately 4 billion year long existence. And that'll put into context how exactly my thought process works.
Okay, well, I'm interested in your model. So until I have a full understanding of what your model actually means, you know what, like you said, if it's going to take several hours, then I guess we're going to have another conversation.
Well, I'm around and I'm always happy to talk to people. I really don't like the drama that's been happening. So the more we can keep it to science, the happier I'll be. So I'm more than willing and eager to have that combo.
I would very much like to have something to look at on my own at my own pace, because if the science goes over my head, I don't want to like ruin a good conversation where I have to stop and go look shit up. So
The most
if I can,
important
you know what I mean?
Yeah. The most important thing philosophically to understand about my model is that everything is down to causes and effects, and figuring out what is the true cause and what is the true effect, because I think it's really easy to accidentally switch the two around in our thinking process, because humans are just not all that great at telling, right? We have a huge amount of bias. So philosophically, what we're trying to do is take a step back and be absolutely certain what came first.
And then be able to prove it.
Well, sure, it should make predictions, otherwise it's not really science.
No, it's philosophy. If you can't make future predictions, it's not science, it's philosophy.
I don't know about you guys, but I can barely hear Josh.
Josh said he's tired. It's almost 3 o'clock. It's 2:30. We should shut this down. I'm getting fucking tired too.
Hey,
Anybody?
sorry, I took care of a couple things.
Hey, I'm tired of running your show, Josh. Do your job.
What's been going on? I mean, I figured you guys were having a good
Me and Jen have
conversation.
been having fun.
Well, good. I
Yeah, we
mean,
were.
that's. I'm glad that I can have that happen while I'm gone. I just got in a riveting side conversation. Just bicycle.
Again?
Yeah, you know, like I buy beers like one at a time. Because I have to ride my bicycle all the way.
Let me get this straight. You're running a live stream and you ran your bicycle to the store twice in this one live stream
For a beer.
for a beer.
Does that mean your technique isn't working that well, mate?
No, I mean, hey, like you know, here's the thing. If it was like dead and nobody was talking, I would have stuck around and not gone and get a beer. But because there was a good conversation going, and I was like, you know, I don't really have anything to add, so I'm just gonna go get a beer.
Just don't kill any more mailboxes.
That was a mistake. Like, I mean, here's the thing. Like, wine is cheaper to drink overall, but man, like, drunk for more.
And hey Josh, I just want to say something real quick, man. I'm sorry for me going hostile on that one guy, and then in the side chat me having some beef with him. But you know, I just don't like people with that mindset.
Man, I don't keep up
Who,
with
that firmament fucker?
Because yeah,
No, I
he
mean,
kept coming. He just kept coming back in the chat room, you know, and it's just like,
you know, that's the thing. Like, you know, my Friday nights, I might,
At
you
least
know,
he left.
he did leave, and I'll give him that. He wasn't trying to start. But you know, here's my
Hey,
thing.
Josh,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you, whatever happened to that Antifa guy? Did he, you know, after what happened when he was here last time? Because he really sounded to me like he was at the end. Well, after he became a real snowflake instantly.
Yeah, he did. And we've cut off contact. He's not gonna come back on. He basically
Oh, really?
he kind of went at me and said that I was helping the fucking system to go against what he's calling, and I was just like, fuck it, man, whatever. It's not my thing. I played it cool. I was nice to him, and I thought about reading the correspondence between us, but I don't like to dig into people's personal shit.
Fair enough. Sorry
Wait,
for going off tangent then.
no,
You
go
just
ahead.
reminded me of him.
No,
No,
go.
that's it. Yeah, you just reminded me. Go on, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, it's no problem. You know, I'm always. That's one thing I'd like to make clear. You know, like I might like to get drunk on Friday nights. You I work all week. I come home, I do this podcast, and as it goes on, I get a little bit more. And but I try to maintain my composure enough to not be a dickhead outright. Some people might have said I've been dickhead to people throughout this, but you know, like I ask tough questions, and that's why I like people like Fellow Man. He asks tough questions. He goes a little bit different direction than I do, but you know, I can relate to everybody, and I try to meet everybody in the middle ground. And if I can't meet a middle ground, then I automatically have like a, why can't I see eye to eye to? Got the same thing with the snowflake that came on. I was cool with him. I was nothing but nice to him. Kind of disrespected me. Yeah.
Well, you even defended him against the chat. You know,
He was extremely arrogant.
Yeah, he was. He was, but you know, I was trying to do something different. You know,
Yeah, no.
like nobody does that, and like I wanted him to be cool and be like, man, you know, like I don't agree with you, but you're a cool guy, and he never said that to me. He never even asked me a fucking question. I asked him every single. And this dude care, but voting his.
kind of sounds like a typical Antifa bloke to me.
Yeah, pretty much.
Flat Earth, flat Earth, flat Earth, flat Earth.
Same difference. All same difference. You know, you can take that in all direction. Auto hoax, GDL, all that. Same.
Yep.
You know, I'm pretty just level. That's where I like to try. I'm a radical centrist. I feel like I should change my channel name to that. A radical centrist, because I'm very center line to a radical extreme. Crazy.
Well, Josh, it's like this, man. You're damn near being a saint putting up with me, so good on you, man.
Nah, man, you haven't done anything. Like, we've talked shit. You might have said a nasty thing or two, but who gives it? You know,
At the end of the day, I just want you to know, dude, I truly do love you, man.
I appreciate that. I love you too, and everybody out there, man. You guys have all stuck by with me through this crazy journey, and we're growing. We're getting more views. We're getting more people listening to what we have to say, and you know that's an important thing. More people, new people, hopefully, are gonna hear what we have to say and hear these conversations, and maybe in a couple of years, somebody will run across this podcast and be like, "Man, where the fuck did that go?" Like, I'm trying to just keep it going the best I can. Like, the old way, but the new way. Stoked to do. No, I really. Please leave. Yes, you're crossing lines. You're being an absolute asshole. As far as the podcast go, if everybody could kind of get on a schedule. Please leave. Yes, you're crossing lines. You're being an absolute asshole. I'm being polite.
I'd just like to know why you're here, OV. What's the point, mate? If you're going to hear just stir people up.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I was having a good conversation until people started acting like fucking jackasses.
Yeah, until
you're the one interrupting every time.
Yes.
Man.
Interrupting. Hey, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
But
well, I asked you a question and you didn't answer it.
I did answer it.
No, you answered it with a question.
Is it possible that someone's dying wish can be granted?
That's an answer to a question? That's actually a question. That's not an answer to a question. It's another fucking question.
A question to a question can still be an answer.
The question was, is it reasonable to think that someone being executed has something to say about how they're being executed?
Yes. Yes, it is reasonable. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Are you
I
done?
don't know how you can know one way or the other. It seems pretty speculative.
Yeah,
to me.
shut the fuck up, Jenny.
Hey, how about you quit being a
were
dick?
just
Like,
asked to leave,
hey, you
Ovi.
know,
Why-
man,
Ovi,
I asked you to leave. Aaron backs me up on this. Please,
Please
please,
leave.
please.
No, I know.
Please leave.
Now I'm gonna stay because I feel like pissing you
Well,
guys off.
you're not gonna
Unfortunately,
stay.
you don't
Kick
know
me
him well
out.
enough. You won't.
Kick me
he
out. If
won't
you want me to
He
leave,
won't
kick
leave.
me out.
Like,
Hey,
why
don't
can
ever
you?
be disrespectful to Aaron. That ain't
Yeah,
cool, man.
you're damn right.
I don't give a shit. At this point, I don't give a
be
shit. If you want me to leave, kick me out.
disrespectful to anyone.
Kick me out.
Sure, it can look a little. I don't want to say some things because the churches where I am are a bit weird, but yeah, you can make fun of the Christians in the local churches all you want, but they have lives that are way better off than your average Satanist. Like heads and shoulders, hands down, whatever phrase you want to use. You don't want to exchange bodily fluids of any sort with a Satanist because you don't know what diseases you're going to get.
Yep.
You stay away from them is what you do.
Goddamn
How is
straight.